We will now move on to the dialogue featuring the Honorable Christopher John Mintz, Premier of New South Wales, and RURIKA IMAHASHI, Sydney Bureau Chief at Nikkei Inc. Please welcome the 47th Premier of New South Wales, Chris Mintz, with applause. So please, RURIKA-san, please take him. Yeah, thank you. So please. Yes, please take a seat. Yes. Now I hand over to my colleague RURIKA for the fireside chat.
Thank you very much, Premier, for joining this session today.
Did you want me to say a few words? Is that
Yes.
great?
Could we have a speech here?
Okay. Should just say I'm always prepared to give a speech, but not if I'm not asked to do it. But thank you. Thanks, RURIKA. Thank you, everybody, for having me, and I really look forward to our conversation in a moment. I want to acknowledge the Gadigal people and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And thanks to Nikkei for hosting us at today's event. And I'm sure it's been a very successful conversation and an important summit. It's good to be here. I think that the people in this room seem to be the only people in Australia at the moment not currently visiting Japan, which is incredible. It's certainly what it feels like. Earlier this year, the Australian Financial Review wrote an article with the headline, "Why are your friends all in Tokyo right now?" And according to Expedia, Tokyo recently overtook Bali as the most popular tourist destination for Australian travellers, which is remarkable, really exciting, and I think it speaks to two things: the adventurousness of Australians and their willingness to travel around the world and soak up other cultures, and secondly, the warmness with which people are greeted in Japan. It speaks to, I think, the Japanese character. So the relationship between our people is as close as it's ever been. We visit each other, increasingly we know one another, and there's enormous affection between the two countries. As a result, we trade a lot with each other. Japan is our state's largest export market and our second largest two-way trading partner, with more than $46 billion each year. That's a strong, enduring, and I think mutually beneficial relationship. Ever since we opened or reopened trade with Japan in 1957, our economies have always complemented one another. In that time, Australian resources have fueled Japan's industrialisation, which in turn has supplied Australian consumers with essential goods. And as a result of people like, if you listen to people like Paul Keating, a deflationary effect on the Australian economy. That's been a winning model for more than 65 years. Now, natural resources, particularly coal, has been a bedrock in that economic relationship. Here in New South Wales, we've relied on it for our export income, and in Japan, it's been used to power economic growth, particularly the manufacturing sector. And we believe that'll continue for some time, but we also have to speak of the reality that both our countries have signed up to a net zero future, powered by clean energy. So right now, we have to start updating that trading model for the 21st century. And it means working together, harnessing our comparative advantages and strengths to keep the lights on in both our countries and to drive the next generation of cheaper, greener and cleaner energy. I'm sure we'll discuss those opportunities in detail in a moment, and I imagine that's been a central part of the dialogue over the last few days. But it raises one risk to that future, which is One of the risks to that exciting future is countries deciding to turn inwards away from the world and away from global trade and growth. You see this in different parts of the world, particularly when election season rears its head. Leaders arguing for higher tariffs or more barriers to trade or less overseas investment. In the strongest possible terms, I believe we need to resist and reject that temptation. It would make us poorer, more isolated, and less able to solve our collective problems. According to the World Bank, since 1990, global trade has increased incomes by 25% across the world, And in the poorest 40% of the globe, it's increased them by 50%. Engagement and global trade are crucial for Australia and crucial for our region, crucial for our economic prospects, and also an important way of ensuring that we have peace and understanding between different cultures. Trade, I think, fundamentally is good for the world, and it's something we have to continue to nurture. It's fundamental for our economic success. And I think that Japan has been a world leader in promoting trade and understanding the benefits of it around our region in particular. So I'm very happy to be here, looking forward to the discussion and how we can build bridges between Australia and Japan in the future in the interests of both of our people. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much again, Premier. So as you mentioned, New South Wales has been a very important energy supplier to Japan. Last year, New South Wales export to Japan was 25 billion Australian dollar, and mostly it was coal. And coal still accounts for 30% of Japan's energy mix, so this is significant. But as we transition to renewable energy, what do you see as an alternative option?
Well, a few things about... Is that working? A few things about coal in the first instance. We've appreciated the relationship, the trading relationship. It's, as I said in my remarks, it's been very important for the New South Wales economy, and it's been important for the Japanese industrialisation, particularly manufacturing. So that will continue, but we do have to acknowledge that increasingly New South Wales' largest export, 20% of our exports, has been coal, and we sold $45 billion of it last year. Many, well, not most, but the largest export partner was Japan. Now, that's a lot of concentration for our single largest export, and we have to be thinking creatively about where future opportunities will come from in the years ahead. It's one of the reasons why we have to be, and we've been very vigilant about critical minerals in the New South Wales economy and opening up opportunities for partnering with Japanese firms, potentially mining companies, to see where resources can be dug up, where they can be exported, what the value add can be for those commodities. In addition to critical minerals, gold is important as well, and we have to, and we will continue to, support opportunities for mineral exploration in New South Wales. Secondly, and this is an opportunity for New South Wales, and this is in some ways a challenge for resource-rich economies like our states, and that is that we've got wonderful research universities, we have a stable democracy, we've got a safe and wonderful, beautiful place to live, but we have to be more creative about what we sell to the rest of the world. As I said, 20% of our exports were coal, but it only represents about 2% of our economy. There are amazing opportunities in the creative economy, the education economy, or professional services to grow in the years ahead. And 40% of the state's growth in the last 3 decades have come from those 3 industries. So I think that means more conferences like this, more summits, more opportunity for economic engagement so that we can think beyond mineral extraction and export and start thinking about what Australia can provide to the rest of the world.
Thank you. And following up on energy, hydrogen is one area that Japanese companies are very active investing in. And New South Wales has its own hydrogen strategy and aims to bring down the production cost to 2.8 Australian dollar per kilo by 2030. So my question is, how are you approaching to achieve this target?
Yeah, we need to put more of a focus on it. We believe there's a lot of capital and potential investment in hydrogen, but it's been a bit, there's been some fits and starts when it comes to that kind of investment in New South Wales. So we're working a lot closer with the Commonwealth Government to more closely align where the regulation sits with hydrogen, where there's going to be investment, particularly from the Commonwealth Government, and where the state can play a role there, because I don't want to see, if there is a Japanese firm, for example, that wants to invest in hydrogen opportunities in the state, have to run through all of the New South Wales regulation before they get to the Commonwealth regulation too. So I think there's an opportunity for us to streamline approvals to get capital flowing in that part of the economy. There's some really exciting opportunities to the north and the south of Sydney in particular, Newcastle and Wollongong, with both of their civic leaders and their business leaders thinking about opportunities for the future. So a lot of it will be driven by the federal government, but there's big opportunities there too.
And so we have many Japanese experts here, and one challenge and also opportunity for us is housing crisis. And how are you dealing with this housing crisis, and what kind of investment are you expecting from Japanese companies?
Well, if I'm going to be candid, we haven't been doing a great job. Housing construction and completion in New South Wales is down. It's particularly down in comparison to other jurisdictions around the country, which have similar populations and the same economic base. If you compare New South Wales, if you compare Sydney and Melbourne, for example, roughly the same size cities. Last year, Melbourne completed 58,000 new dwellings. Sydney had 48,000 across the state, but most of them concentrated in Sydney. And we need to be doing far better. The median house price in Sydney is $1.4 million. In Melbourne, it's $1 million. So notwithstanding the fact that we've got the largest number of inbound migrants, we have the highest housing prices, we've got the highest increase in rents over the last 2 years, 34% increase. We're losing twice as many young people as we gain every 12 months. We're producing, in net terms, the lowest amount of housing on the eastern seaboard. Where do we fit in? Well, we have to work far harder on regulation and planning controls, and we have to challenge, I think, a culture as well. The culture in Sydney has been against density and against people living closer to the city, particularly along public transport lines. And a lot of the government's focus, my government's focus, is about creating the environment to have that change. We're the 800th densest city in the world, and yet other than Hong Kong, we're the most expensive, according to an international survey of last month. And those two things are related.
As for the supply constraint, we also face some issues like labor shortage and material shortage in this housing crisis. How are you dealing with? How are you doing to solve these issues and supply constraint? And how are you speeding up the buildings process?
Well, I mean, labor's a big challenge in New South Wales. We've got close to full employment, and as a result there wouldn't be a small business, a medium-sized enterprise, even one of my big government departments that doesn't have enormous pressure to find labour for their business, their organisation. This is a challenge right across the economy. One of the ways we're trying to deal with it, to go back to your previous question, is housing. And when you're losing twice as many young people as you are gaining, they're the productive parts of your economy. We've had intrastate migration in New South Wales for a long time, but generally speaking, it's been older Australians that have moved from New South Wales to Queensland. Now we're losing young people, and they're the people that we want to join our firms, to work for the government potentially, to start their own businesses, to be entrepreneurial, and even to coach soccer teams and cricket teams and football teams. And if they're not here starting families in New South Wales, it will be to our detriment. So first and foremost, from the order of priority from the government's point of view, I have to deal with the huge housing shortages and supplies. Secondly is having access to skilled labour in the state. We're doing more when it comes to vocational education. We've got a hydrogen centre of excellence. We're putting more money into TAFE and vocational education. We're looking at pathways to locally train people. I'm not going to be one of those people that puts up a sign that says Sydney's full. I think that one of the one of the marvels of our economy and our community is that people from around the world come to a place like Sydney and call home and start a family and join a community. I think that's still intrinsic and fundamental to the fact that we're probably Australia's only international city. That's one of the reasons why. But immigration policy is a Commonwealth government responsibility, and in the meantime, I need to make sure that we've got particularly young people with the skills and know-how to fill great paying jobs in the economy.
And back on the energy and transition and trade between Japan and Australia, how is New South Wales thinking about industrial policy, and what areas do you see an opportunity to transform the nature of your state economy?
Yeah, I mean, we look closely at emerging industries. Oftentimes, it means leveraging taxpayer money, and I've got to be very careful about that. So I think that the idea of going into particular industries, picking winners, putting enormous money behind it, that's risky for an economy the size of New South Wales, which is slightly bigger than Singapore's and bigger than Denmark's, and obviously export-oriented and focused. So we've really tried to narrow it down to a few key areas. We want to make sure that we're in a position to execute the massive reform in our energy consumption in the state. We don't have enough people working in the construction sector for residential construction, for new houses, or for our renewable energy projects. So our industry policy is quite limited to our immediate needs, and I guess if I was looking over the horizon, our medium-term needs. But I think that that's appropriate given the circumstances that we're in. So we want to make sure, and we are investing in renewable energy. We want to make sure that there's enough labour, skilled labour in those industries to take those jobs. And a big part of our industry policy is ensuring that we've got residential housing that's going in across Sydney.
So we're back to the residential issue, right? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Premier. We really enjoyed the discussion with you.
Oh, thanks so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.